Welcome to the Female Founder Friday podcast, a collection of inspiring conversations with the most interesting female entrepreneurs and small business owners. I'm your host, Lindsay White, and together with my incredible guests, we'll explore the struggles of being a female entrepreneur, the most important lessons, and the future of women leaders in business. And I'm passionate about helping female entrepreneurs become the calm, confident leader their team and their business really need. And that's why I've recently launched my 6-week mental fitness bootcamp. This amazing program will help you tackle your inner critic, tame your saboteur, and tap into your sage inner voice that will help you build the mental muscles you need to quickly overcome the changes and challenges you're facing right now. If you're ready to transform your leadership and your life, connect with me today at highvoltageleadership.ca/positive intelligence to learn more. My guest on this week's podcast is Megan Huber. Megan's journey to becoming a female founder is filled with some incredible twists and turns. Originally, she thought she'd work in the hospitality industry after graduating college. But after several years working as a teacher and then a network marketer, she discovered her passion for coaching and helping others create powerful group programs that really changed her work and her life. Throughout it all, Megan found her own voice, conquered her self-doubt, and discovered that there's real power in asking for help. My chat today with Megan is really vulnerable and filled with great advice and inspiration that I know you're just going to love. Hey, welcome, Megan, to Female Founder Friday podcast. I'm super pumped to have a chat with you today. Thank you so much for spending some time with me.
Yeah, I'm so happy to be here. I love sharing stories and hearing stories. So this one's going to be juicy.
Awesome. Well, you're in the right place because that's what this is all about. So let's just jump in. I want to hear your story of how you became a female founder. What is that?
Awesome. So not what I set out to do years ago. Had no idea this is where I was going to end up. Like, I'm sure everybody says that. I'll go back to my career before I ever started a business. I was a high school teacher.
Really?
It gets interesting too. I was a business education teacher.
Oh.
Not what I went to college for. I did not go to school to be a teacher. I got a degree in business, and my first job, so I graduated college in 2004, and I don't remember what was going on in the world at that time. It was a long time ago. I just remember that graduating class, there was something about like no jobs were around. We were like a class that had such a hard time finding jobs. And I remember so many of my friends were either moving home or staying put, and everybody was getting a job as a hostess or a waiter or a waitress in restaurants because nobody could actually find a real job. And my degree was in business management. I thought I was going to work in hotels because I worked at a resort on the beach for 3 years, and I was in college, and I thought, well, I know that world. I like that world. I'll go in that world. And it was so hard to find a job. I ended up getting an entry-level manager in training position at Jason's Deli. Okay. And it's sort of like a restaurant, but not a restaurant. It's like mixed between like it's not fast food. We made sandwiches and spuds.
Okay.
I cried every single day. I was 22. I cried every day. I was living at home with my parents. I got this job like a month after I graduated. It was the only thing I could find though. And so my mom was an educator her entire career. And she's like, why don't you just become a teacher? I'll send you to go get your master's degree in teaching. I can get you in, we'll figure out how to get you in literally with, over the summer, right after I graduated college. And then I got into a master's program that August as a 22-year-old. And my mom was like, you'd be such an amazing teacher. Like, why don't you just do that? So I did. And because I had a degree in business, I could get a job at the high school as a full-time teacher in the business education department without a teaching certification. So that's what I did. Now, where the story gets interesting is I taught at the high school I graduated from in my hometown, and I'm from a really small town of 2,000 people in rural North Carolina.
Wow.
My mom was my teacher in high school 3 times in the business department. And when I got my own classroom. My classroom was right beside my mom's.
Well, that's funny.
Yeah, it was funny. And she was a phenomenal mentor for me too. She was an amazing, amazing teacher. And she was also an administrator, and she was amazing at that too. And I was the tennis coach. I was a football athletic trainer. I was the graduation project coordinator, which should have been a full-time job with the team. And I kind of was like, yes to everything, and just like led whatever my principal asked me to do. And I was actually on a track to become a principal. My principal at the time was encouraging me to go through the Principal Fellows program and become a principal. And I was pretty set on that. And my husband and I had a daughter in 2010, and she was born at the very beginning of the school year. And I don't know what it was, but there was something in me that just had this thought, I'm putting in 70 to 80 hours a week in this school building. How on earth am I going to be able to operate at the level that I operate in the classroom and for this community and for this school? I was heavily involved, and be as involved as I see myself being in as a mom with my own daughter. Now, I am not the stay-at-home mom type. That was never in the cards for me, will never be in the cards for me.
No.
Which is why it was kind of odd. I just like cold turkey quit my job and came home, and very quickly didn't like it. And I'm not afraid to say that. It wasn't that I didn't love my child. I did not enjoy being home by myself with a baby.
Yeah.
Essentially doing nothing.
Yeah.
I had a really hard time with that.
You know what? And I just want to acknowledge, I think that there is a solid group of us that was never going to be us. And it's okay to say that. You're not a bad mom because being at home with your baby didn't bring you a ton of joy.
Yeah, it didn't. Yeah. Not like zero. It literally brought me zero. Not that she didn't bring me joy, but that way of living didn't.
Yeah.
And so about 3 months in, I was about to go crazy. And my husband was a personal trainer, and he was really well connected. And he had these two clients that had been in a network marketing company for 30 years. And he was a college professor up the road at UNC Chapel Hill. And my husband had cancer like 18 or 19 years ago. And this particular professor was one of the people who worked on the treatment for the type of cancer that my husband had.
Wow.
And they had this incredible network marketing business connected to a health and wellness company. And so my husband was like, well, why don't you just like dabble in that? I'm already connected to it. My husband wasn't building a team. Like he wasn't doing any of that, but he would recommend supplements to his clients. Yeah. And I was like, okay. So that's where I actually got my start. I did it for a year. And what that taught me is it taught me how to network. It taught me how to have conversations at networking events. It got me speaking at networking events. It taught me marketing. It taught me sales. It taught me customer service. It started teaching me leadership in a new way. It started teaching me that in order to grow, I had to be a leader that built other leaders. Yeah. And, network marketing gets a really bad rap. I don't do any of that now. It lasted for a year. That was in 2011. It actually can be extremely good training ground for learning a lot of those basics. I mean, I was a teacher. I didn't have to do any of those things. And even though I had a business degree, that didn't really help me that much with just like going out on my own and building my own business because all your insecurities come up.
Right.
Yeah. So that was the first thing that I dabbled in, and really helped me connect with people in the community and in surrounding communities in bigger cities. And, being the mom at home that I didn't really enjoy doing, it also just kind of put me in a bit of an identity crisis, I think, because I was so used to working and achieving and creating and leading. And I knew I wasn't going to be a lifer network marketer. And my husband was also a certified coach. And he thought, why don't you go take this coaching certification? But he recommended it to me to build my own personal development, like just to work on myself.
Right.
And it was through that process, and it was pretty long. It was like a 5-month long certification program. And he did it with me, even though he had done it before, years before. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is so similar to what I was doing with my high school kids. When you're working with, I think any age child, but especially a high school student, you are so much more than a teacher if you want those students to be on board with you.
Yeah, no,
You have to learn how to coach them, mentor them, lead them, and also become their friend at the same time you're teaching, which I call all of that. You're basically facilitating.
Yeah.
And then you've got to do that with different learning styles and cognitive abilities and, kids that didn't have support at home. And I had 9th graders through 12th graders all in the same class, and I taught an elective.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like they had to be in there.
Right.
So I was like, wow, this coaching thing is really up my alley. I had been a tennis coach before. And so it was really allowing me to use a lot of the skills and experiences I had had for quite a few years. And I got to the end of that in 2011. And within 2 weeks, I went the whole route of setting up a website and got a logo and got business cards. And I grew my business through speaking. I had built all those relationships at those networking events, speaking. Yeah. And that's how I built my first coaching business. That's how it all started. And I began working with brick and mortars. I had a dog groomer that was a client, insurance agents, financial planners, graphic designers, men, women. I worked with a guy who developed some sort of new technology at the time for identifying, like, earlier identification of fetal alcohol syndrome. And I was helping him turn that into a course that he was then teaching. So I had a lot of really unique experiences back then. So that's how I got started 10 years ago now.
Yeah. Well, see, this is why I love asking this question, because behind every great female founder, there is always a super cool story, a super cool evolution. And I really love, Megan, the way that you brought all of your transferable skills, expertise, learning into what you do today. Like, I think that connection is so cool, because when we can do that, I think we're just better overall when we can bring all of that great stuff to our business. Right.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And of course, like, a lot has happened in 10 years too. I didn't actually keep that business. I'm in the second iteration of a business.
I love it.
Yeah. I did something else in between.
Yeah. Like how did that happen?
So it's a little different. So I had my business through April of 2013, my first coaching business. And I met a woman. I had no idea who she was. Somehow a video of her popped up on my Facebook newsfeed. And this was in the beginning of 2013. And it was about an 8-minute video. And she was sitting in this beautiful home with the Pacific Ocean behind her. And she was in an all-white suit. And she was talking about welcoming a new apprentice that she wanted to mentor and kind of pass the torch. She had been a coach for many years. She had been a psychotherapist before that. She had built a multi-7-figure business, had created this lifestyle. And although I had worked with a lot of coaches and I had been in programs, prior to that, I'd been thinking, like, if I'm going to build this, what I see myself building in this online space, in this industry, I want to know what actually goes on behind the scenes. I want to get my hands in there. I want someone to take me under their wing and show me everything, because that's usually not happening when you're just a coach-client relationship. Right.
Yeah.
And I said, oh my gosh, like, this is what I've been asking for. I'm going to apply for this. I had no clue who she was. I knew nothing about her brand. Somehow, by the grace of God, I got chosen. And she ended up choosing, I think, 6 or 7 people out of 150 applicants. I was not part of this person's community. I think I might've been the only person not part of her community who applied, because she had a huge global community. So I was her apprentice with some other ladies for about a year in 2013. And the reason why she brought us on was to help her develop her flagship group program, which she had them before, but this was new and different. It was a certification program. So it was a business building program and a certification program. So we helped build it and launch it in 2013.
Oh.
And when we launched it, we filled it with 212 people, and she needed to hire folks. And so she invited me to be the certification director. It was part-time. So I still had my business this whole time. And then she kept offering me a full-time job to be the director of all of the programs, all the curriculum, client experience, client delivery. And then finally in May of 2014, I said yes. And I worked there until the end of 2016. So I developed all of the curriculum, ran all the programs, structured all the program. That was in my wheelhouse. It was in my wheelhouse for my teaching background.
Right?
Yeah.
Totally.
Then you're learning, you're literally sitting beside this person every single day. And she did a lot of global travel. And so there were a lot of spans of time where she wasn't in the office, but there were also spans of time where I was literally sitting directly beside her and, just learned more. It was beyond learning about the business pieces and all the different departments and leadership. It was also getting to get into someone's mind who was constantly going for what they believed was possible for them. And I don't know that I ever heard a negative or hopeless or doubtful phrase come out of her mouth ever in the entire time. Now, of course, there were setbacks. Of course, there were things that didn't go well. Of course, there were unforeseen challenges that we faced. But one of the biggest things I walked away with from her was realizing you can literally create whatever you desire to create and whatever you believe in. And there's always a way to make it happen. And I watched that. It didn't matter what was going on. She was going to meet her goal. And we always did. That was pretty incredible. So that was kind of like a pit stop in my journey, but it just showed me so much about leadership. And, over time, I watched probably 1,000 different clients go through those programs. So you're studying what's working and what doesn't work. You're studying how people think, what holds them back, how they can progress. And then I left at the end of 2016 and rebooted my own business. And now I've been back in my own business for a little over 5 years.
And brought all of that incredible knowledge and information back to your own business and back to your clients.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty cool.
That is so cool. No wonder you are so incredibly successful. What a journey.
Yeah.
That is super. Yeah. Okay. So now I want to ask you, and I'm sure that you probably have 15 different stories for this, but where have you messed it up along the way, Megan? Where have you made mistakes?
Messed it up. Gosh. Okay. Well, this is kind of intangible. I'll start with an intangible one.
Totally.
Letting your thoughts control you for
Yeah.
too long.
Yeah.
We all, you and I both talk to a lot of women business owners and founders all day, every day. And you and I both, this is something I've been doing a lot more of lately. You and I both have had plenty of behind closed doors conversations with very successful people.
Yeah.
And there's a part of all of us, because I'm hearing this from people who have been in business longer than me or more financially successful than me, whatever, like it doesn't matter. And it's like everyone is having their own moments or seasons, some shorter, some longer, where they're suffering in silence.
Yeah.
And their mind is just leading them in directions that are not fruitful or that are causing them to question everything, question themselves, question their business, doubt themselves, doubt whether they can do it. Was I a one-hit wonder? Can I really sustain this? Am I going in the right direction? And, there have been, I would say last year was the worst for me. I think that's something that we're all, we all have the same type of brain, right? We're all human beings.
Yep.
And last year, I would say like the big, hiccup, and hindsight's 2020 because a lot of great things are coming out of that season for me.
Yeah.
But I just let it kind of run the show, and nothing came crumbling down. Nothing, basically it was like a year of just like maintaining financially.
Yeah.
There was definitely no financial growth, which is not surprising because of where my headspace was. Now, the outside world didn't know that.
Right.
So it's not like I was, talking about all this as it was happening, until I felt like I was getting through it on the other side.
Yeah.
But that was not asking for help. So if I were going to like continue to kind of answer your question, the part that I didn't do well was I didn't ask for help, and I didn't tell anyone I was experiencing that could have helped.
Yeah.
And it's not like I was staying in bed under the covers in a depressive state. It wasn't like that, but it was just overwhelming questioning of myself.
Yeah.
It was almost like my confidence went from sky high to underground.
Yeah.
For whatever reason. And nothing in particular, like nothing happened. Nothing horrible happened. I didn't have some horrible experience that then made me question everything. It was kind of an odd experience for me. And I didn't talk to any peers about it until closer to the end of the year. And finally, I was having some behind closed doors conversations, just peer-to-peer conversations. And we were starting to open up to each other. And I just remember thinking with a few people, like, I cannot believe they are telling me right now that they have experienced the same thing.
Yes.
And I see that person as so confident and so powerful and so amazing with this incredible business. And at the same time, I was like, hallelujah, nothing is wrong with me.
No.
And you really do get to this place where you almost truly believe something is wrong with you. Like something is innately wrong with me.
Yeah.
I can't figure whatever XYZ out. And I am so alone in this. And then the other thing that you do, so then it spirals into this, then you start watching everyone else, and then you start comparing yourself.
Yes.
And then when you get there, then it just spirals. And then you get, and I'm sharing kind of some details because I think a lot of people go through this and they don't tell anybody, and they do think that something's wrong with them.
Yeah.
And then you spend, again, like, not that I'm just like sitting there spending hours scrolling through social media for the purpose of comparing, but that is the narrative that's going on in your mind a lot.
Yeah.
And then you think, no one's going to listen to me. And then you think, I had a conversation with someone yesterday on a podcast. It was on my show, and I was interviewing her. It was the first time we had ever met. And she started sharing with me what went on for her in 2021. And I was like, oh my God, me too. I wish we had known each other last year. But then the other thing you're thinking about is, if my clients find out I'm having all these wobbles and I'm thinking this about myself, they're all going to leave because they think I can't help them.
Yeah.
And this particular person I interviewed yesterday, she said the same thing.
Yeah.
And so then you just sort of hide. You just hide because you think everybody's going to leave you and everybody's going to run away and no one's going to stay by you.
Yeah.
But in reality, that's the very thing that you need to do, is go reach out so that you do not feel alone and you don't feel like you're wrong and you don't feel like you're going crazy. It can be, not that it's misery loves company, but it was like a sigh of relief when I heard other incredible women entrepreneurs say that they were going through the same thing. Honestly, at the exact same time I was, it was like, oh my gosh, like I can breathe and I can get through this.
Yeah. Megan, what an incredibly vulnerable thing to share. So first of all, thank you. Thank you for sharing and advocating for the female founders that listen to this show. First of all, you're not alone. Megan's felt it. I felt it. You're not, you are not on your own here. There's a tribe. We have a meeting every Wednesday, bring wine. And the other part is that there is a way to manage that inner conversation that is taking you on that downward negative spiral. And I'm going to do a shameless plug here because I do a lot of work with positive intelligence, which is the antidote to that conversation. It is the tools and techniques to help you manage that negative voice in your head that says, you're not good enough. Nobody wants to talk to you. Oh my gosh, if my clients ever found out, all of that negative inner talk. There is a way to manage and deal with that pretty effectively, actually.
Mm-hmm.
But I love that you brought that to the forefront, because I see that that's a great deal of the work that I do is managing that conversation in your own head.
Yeah. And it happens at every level. I think at some point, sometimes you think like, oh, I'm going to be immune to that in the future because I've got all the success under my belt and I'm really confident now. And then you're kind of taken off guard. I think when you do get to certain levels of success, it really takes you off guard because you have had my first 5 years in business was like I had an outstanding run for 5 years and just like growth. And then all of a sudden that happens and it just kind of knocks you off.
Yeah.
It really does.
I think that is such a great point. I think that is such a great point because it kind of sneaks up on you a little bit, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
But the second half of that question is, what did you learn? What do you have to, what would you offer the audience? And certainly when that conversation starts in your head, when you start to think like that and you notice that it's showing up, you got to talk about it. You need to ask for help, name it to tame it. Right.
Yeah.
And there are programs that can absolutely help you get a grip on that pretty effectively, pretty efficiently, and give you the tools to continue to manage it. I think that's the important part because it'll pop up over and over again throughout your life.
Yeah,
right?
It will.
It really will. Yeah. So I really love that. That was really a really brave share. And some really solid advice. Like just talk about it. Tell somebody that that's how you're feeling. Mm-hmm. And then go and find the right someone to help you. And you're not broken. Like that, I think, is the other part to acknowledge. There's nothing wrong with you. Like you don't need to be fixed. You can, there's tools and techniques that you can help yourself here. Yes.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I did share, I kind of already answered the question about, it's asking for help. I'll share a couple of things just to kind of like boom, 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 like 1, 2, 3, 4. Number one, talk to your peers. That actually was the thing that really cracked me open. It was first knowing that other women who were, kind of on my same level or had been in business for a similar number of years, or we were doing similar things, had a similar growth path, just knowing that we were having those conversations together and just sharing very openly with each other what it felt like, what we were dealing with. And, other things are happening in our lives too. So it's not just that, it's like life is happening. I mean, my husband had a heart attack last year in August.
Oh, my word.
And then you're talking to other women because we're all, not all of us are out sharing all the things that are going on a daily basis or weekly basis. And so when you find out like, oh, her husband has been in the hospital and this is happening to her and she's dealing with this family issue. And we're not talking about it from the place of we're complaining about it or we're commiserating together. It's just like, oh my gosh, let's talk about this. Let's talk about this, get it out in the air. So that's number one, connect with peers and have a peer group.
Yeah.
Number two, like exactly what you're saying, is seek like wise counsel, whether it's a coach or someone who has a program and someone who is an expert in this category, right? Like not all of our peers are experts in this, and you need both. We need our peer group, we need our community, and then we need someone who's an expert in that field who knows how to help us beyond just talking to each other about it, right?
Yes.
That's really, really important. Yeah. That's number two. And I was going to share a third. It's kind of escaped me. Oh, I know. It's recognizing that, at least this is what I learned through that process. It was an opportunity for me to get to know myself better. It was an opportunity for me, and I think this was my big wake-up call. I had allowed myself to go too long keeping my standards at the same level.
Interesting.
And tolerating too many things. And this is business, but other things. Let me share a couple of examples. One of the examples is in my 20s, I ended up wearing contacts. I think I got to contacts and glasses. It was in my early 20s. And so I knew my eyesight, it was better when I had a corrective lens, specifically in the left eye. The right one's perfect. And when I got pregnant, I had Brighton. I think I was 8 months pregnant. And that was the last time I visited my eye doctor. And they were like, well, you need to have like a full eye exam for us to give you another package of contacts. And I was like, look, I'm 8 months pregnant. Can you just help a girl out and give me, I don't want to do this right now. I'm 8 months pregnant. And so they gave me the contacts. I never went back. Okay. My daughter is 11 and a half. I went that many years without glasses or contacts. Now, it's not like I can't see.
Right.
The only time I would really notice it is when I was driving at night. And I would think, it's a little like the light and the glare. And it's like, this is a little tough.
Right.
And I actually don't drive that much. I don't have to. My husband does the driving, just where we live. We don't have to drive a lot. It's not like I couldn't see the TV, like nothing's blurry when I'm looking out. It just wasn't as clear as it could be. But you get to a point where you don't realize it could actually be any better because you've just kept your standard at like, well, this is good. This is good enough. This is average. And so that was one example. It's like, I was tolerating not having the clearest vision that I could have, knowing full well for 12 years that I needed to go make that appointment. So that's an example. Another example is how tired I had been for a couple of years. Tired, not throughout the day, but tired when I would wake up in the morning. And I finally got to a point where I was like, this is just like not normal. I mean, I'm 39, I'll be 40 this summer, but the excuse I was making was I'm just not a morning person. Now I was waking up at 7 a.m.
Yeah.
But I felt like my brain was in tar. Like it was like, I did not feel fully alive and awake until about 10 o'clock. And that was after a workout and breakfast. And I had been up for 3 hours and I let that go on for a few years, probably 2. But I just thought like, maybe I just like am not good at waking up in the morning. You know, we hear people say that I'm not a morning person. I love my sleep. I was still like fully functioning throughout the day.
Yeah.
And then in December, this past December, I got really sick and I don't know what I had. We all know what was going around. I kept testing negative, but I don't know how I didn't have it. I had like all the things. And it put me out for a solid 2 weeks, sleeping 14 hours a day. And I had all the symptoms. And still by the end of February, I was still not at 100%. It like sucked away my strength and my endurance and my stamina. Right. And I just know how I can feel. And I was nowhere close to that.
Yeah.
And so finally my husband said, you're going to go to my naturopath. And I was like, great. So I find out I have a thyroid problem. It's my thyroid because my hair started falling out. So anyway, I'm sharing that. What I mean by I let my standards remain the same for too long. And I told the naturopath, I'm like, look, I have a lot of interesting symptoms since being sick. Like my hair is falling out.
Yeah.
Lots of things. And I said, but I'm going to be really honest with you. I've been tired in a way that I think is probably abnormal for a couple of years. So let's just make sure I'm clear about that. And then she does her muscle testing and she was like thyroid, immune system, and basically like autoimmune stuff. And I hadn't been sick in probably 12 years, but that's what I mean by I was tolerating feeling that tired in the morning.
Yeah.
And those are just 2 examples in that category. I was doing that in a lot of areas of my life.
And I think so many of us do, don't we? We tolerate.
Yeah.
We get by. We get by.
Yeah. We get by but we're doing better than most. So then you think, and you're doing better than you were 10 years ago, or you're doing better than you were 5 years ago. You're doing better than like your past self. But at a certain point, you realize my big dreams and goals and vision, it isn't going to happen if my standards stay the same. If I keep tolerating what I'm tolerating, if I have the same routine and the same habits, but I'm just like hoping and wishing and like believing that I'm going to get there, like things have to change over here. And that's why I know that's why I went through what I went through in 2021, because it had to bring me to that place to get that and to face that and to be honest with myself about that, because that was something I was not doing. I was not being brutally honest with myself about the decisions I was making in every category.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that. I think you're right. Like we do. And I don't know, I feel like as women and as female entrepreneurs, we do that more than our male counterparts. We tolerate, we survive, we get by, we grind it out, right? We grind it out. And it sounds like that's some of what you were doing, is just keeping it moving, just keeping it.
Oh yeah.
And we don't have to do like that. Doesn't have to be the existence. It doesn't have to be it. And so I love that point as a real lesson from all of this, is that there's more and you can do it. You can ask for that. You can expect that. And that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. Thank you. I think that's fantastic information to offer everyone that's listening, and for me too, like just to say that. I'm super curious. I mean, you've just had a really interesting career. So like how do you lead? Now you're back in your own business. Like, what does that look like for you?
Leading in my own business. So, I look at leadership in a few categories in my life.
Yeah.
And what I really learned about myself last year is that I was leading other people.
Yeah.
I was leading a business. I was leading a team. I was leading clients, and I wasn't leading myself at the same caliber.
Beautiful.
I had let that fall off.
Yeah.
But you justify it and you think that you are.
Yeah.
You think that you are. And this is what I meant by like, I had to kind of be brought to my knees last year, honestly, like physically, like with all the physical stuff that was going on. And to be honest with myself that I was not leading myself. And I started noticing some areas so my number one core value is honesty.
Love it.
And I was coaching and training and teaching certain things.
Right.
But when I got real with myself and evaluated and analyzed, how am I operating in my own life? And, I'm going to be honest right now. I was not like, that was somewhat inauthentic for me.
Yeah.
And I didn't catch it, but I didn't know. It wasn't like I'm sitting here like intentionally and consciously, like I'm going to tell them this, but I am not going to do it over here. It's not like that at all. It's not like that, because you think you are, or you did it one time, but you let yourself fall off the wagon. Like you let yourself just kind of go.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that. And I didn't recognize it until a certain point last year, like the second half of the year.
Yeah.
So I've really come to realize that leadership is about so much more than leading other people. It is about that. It is about being a leader of self first. Yeah. And that's something I'm really working on now. So leading self, and we play a lot of leadership roles as women. We're leading, you're leading in family, you're leading a business, you're leading team as a whole, also individually, you're leading your clients. Yeah. And to me, leadership is a combination of a few things. I said this, I think, earlier about my teaching experience, but as a classroom teacher, I wanted to be more than a teacher that was teaching them information that would help them pass a test. I wanted to mentor them. Yeah. I wanted to find out what was their personality? What were their quirks? What were their emotions? What were their learning styles or preferred processing styles? And I wanted to be able to customize whatever instruction I was giving them on as much of an individual basis as you could do with 25 kids in one class together.
Yeah.
But there is it's teach people when they need to be taught, and know when to coach, and know when to mentor, and know when to be the friend. I had a interesting experience. I've taken clients on retreats over the last 5 years, probably 20 retreats.
Yeah.
And I was recently on a retreat in January with a group of clients. And it was phenomenal. It was my favorite retreat thus far. And at the end, they were all kind of giving me a little bit of feedback in a very informal, like in a pool kind of thing. And once one of them said to me, she goes, you know what, who we got to know in you, speaking of me, this trip? She goes, we finally got to know the friend in you.
Oh, how lovely.
And they had a very different experience because of that.
Right.
Yeah.
So
it's playing different roles, and it's helping steer, whether it's your team or your clients, other people, they want to feel like they have a purpose.
Yeah.
We desire to be masterful at something, at our craft.
Yeah.
We want to be autonomous. And I think it's really cultivating that in people, whether it's your clients or your teams or even your kid. Those three things are really important for me. One of my favorite, I know you probably listen to him too. One of my favorite people to learn from and read his books is John Maxwell on leadership.
Oh, yeah. He's fantastic.
It's a very servant leadership approach. I love listening to him. I was recently listening to a show of his on his podcast. I don't know what episode. And he was talking about in an organization, the person who has to think the most is the leader. The person who has to think the most is the leader. And oftentimes as leaders, like what I've kind of described, we're always on the go. We love results. We love taking action. We have this vision. We love moving things forward. And we also like moving really, really fast. And I got to a point last year as well, where I finally realized one of my dominant thoughts, it was beyond a thought. I was saying it out of my mouth, was I don't have time for that.
Right.
And what I also noticed is that I was just sort of going from one thing to the next, as I always had. And I wasn't taking time to think on a daily basis and schedule that in my calendar. And that's a significant change that I've made. And I believe we have to do those things as leaders. We have to make changes with our habits, with our routines. We have to carve out time to think and be creative and be more imaginative, but also realize our ideas are not always the best. And it's tapping other people on the shoulder.
Oh, for sure.
You can take your idea and make it even better, despite how masterful you may be at whatever the craft is. So that's my approach to leadership. And I love evolving and growing and learning and feeling like I'm still a beginner. I love taking that approach of I'm still a beginner at this.
Yeah. I mean, having that beginner mindset, bringing the curiosity, I think that will never steer you wrong, right? Especially when we lead, whether it's, like you said, leading in our families, our communities, in our business, with our own team or with our clients, really bringing the curiosity, just purely to know more. And when you start there, I think you can build something magical. But I want to go back to that very first comment you made when I asked you this question, because I thought that was really profound. And it's something that I talk about a lot. You have to start by leading from within. Leadership is an inside job. And if you are not effective at leading yourself, and if you're not honest, and I love that comment, if you are not honest with yourself, how the heck are you going to lead anybody else?
Exactly.
That's the bottom line, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And it's in all the areas of life. It's in your health, it's in your spirituality, it's in family, it's with your partner. If you have a partner, it's with friendships, hobbies, it's all those things.
All of those things. We lead every day in every interaction, every relationship, every connection, like whether it's letting somebody in line with the milk and the eggs at the grocery store, holding the door for somebody, right? Like all of those that's leadership. Every single one of those things is how we show up as a leader.
Yeah. Well, being a leader is about influencing other people. And I'm so glad you just said that, like store who's in line or opening the door for someone. It's about recognizing every single person who's watching you, you know, do you have the ability to influence them?
Yeah.
With the way that you're entering a room, the way, like the smile on your face, how you greet a service provider at a hotel.
Yeah.
You've got the ability to influence all the time.
All the time. And I would also say, tying it back to your, your very vulnerable share earlier about that inside conversation, that inner critical voice, right? That is going to inform the way you show up, the way you lead, if you're not actively dealing with that conversation, right? Because I think the two things tie together. Megan, thank you. This has been an incredible conversation. And I mean, we talked before, we knew it was going to be. You have shared some really remarkable things today. So much learning. I hope everybody had a pen and piece of paper, because your wisdom and your experience and your vulnerability was incredible. So thank you for spending some time with me. I'm super grateful.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for having me. And thanks for letting me share the story.
Yeah, absolutely. My pleasure. To everyone tuning in today, thanks for listening to the Female Founder Friday podcast. I really love that Megan recognized that being a great leader starts by leading yourself first. And you can find out more about Megan and the incredible work that she does on Instagram, and her handle is Megan J. Huber. And of course, you can find me on Instagram as well. My handle there is @HighVoltLeadership. The Female Founder Friday podcast has a goal to impact 1,000 listeners, and it would mean the world to me if you left this episode a 5-star review and shared it with all of your friends. Let's engage 1,000 female entrepreneurs and really amplify the message. Thank you so much for being a part of this show, and don't forget to connect with me at highvoltageleadership.ca.